This Birding Adventures episode is powered by Nikon, your world leader in optics since 1917.
Welcome to another episode of Nikon's Birding Adventures TV. We've just got off the plane on Andros Island, one of the largest islands in the Bahamian chain of islands. On this episode, we're going in quest of some very special birds, piping plovers, great lizard cuckoos, and our golden bird for this episode, the very rare and critically endangered endemic bird, the Bahama oriole. Let's go birding. That is awesome. I got it. Looks like we can get out into the ocean. We're about to get in the cage with Australian saltwater crocodiles. And I'm gonna fly like the birds. Oh!
I will never forget this moment.
Let's go birding.
Like a scattered string of pearls strewn across a cobalt blue plate, the islands of the Bahamas stretch from their most northerly point in the Abacos south to Andros and Inagua, across 500 miles of the Caribbean Sea. As the site of Columbus's first landfall in the Americas, the Bahamas have a long and storied history. With over 2,000 islands and keys, the Bahamas are home to some of the best beaches, diving, fishing and birding in the world. Join us on a fascinating three-part series on the endemic birds of the Bahamas. From the Inagua woodstar, to the Abaco parrot, to the Bahama oriole of Andros. Join us as we discover the amazing bird life, natural beauty, culture, people and food across this pristine and biodiverse island chain. All the Bahamian islands boast abundant natural attractions, but Andros, the largest, is king when it comes to exceptional natural surroundings. Here you'll find the world's third largest fringing barrier reef, mesmerizing blue holes, and numerous species of flora and fauna. At 2,300 square miles, Andros is the largest island of the Bahamas and the fifth largest island in the Caribbean. Its miles of deserted beaches and freshwater lakes play host to countless species of birds, including specialities like the great lizard cuckoo, Cuban pewee, Cuban emerald, and the Key West quail dove, along with endemics like Bahama woodstar, Bahama swallow, Bahama yellowthroat, and our golden bird for this episode, the Bahama oriole. Join us as we explore this amazing Bahamian island with Scott Johnson from the Bahamas National Trust and Aderman's Matthew Jeffrey. Let's go birding. This Birding Adventures episode is powered by Nikon, your world leader in optics since 1917.
And sponsored in part by Manfrotto, complete solutions for photographers and videographers. Visit manfrotto.us. And by Pelagic Polarized Sunglasses.
And by the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism and the Islands of the Bahamas. Birding is better in the Bahamas.
Welcome to North Andros. Let's go birding.
We're in the Jolta Keys, right in the north of Andros, and we're with Matt Jeffries, who heads up the Piping Plover Winter Recovery Initiative. And today, we're heading out to go and look at this endangered species. The tide's coming in, So we've got to move pretty quickly to try and get these birds. Let's get moving. So we've got a group of about 45 piping plovers hunkered down in the wind on this little atoll. And basically this is 1% of the Atlantic population of piping plovers, which, believe it or not, is actually quite a small number for this particular little atoll, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've had up to 128 birds here in one time. They're starting to come back here. This mass of eelgrass is starting to build up, and they don't actually have to move off of this site to feed. They just feed on all the bugs in amongst the eelgrass. This is just like a luxury spa for these guys. They can sit there, preen, sleep, and then just eat without having to really move too fast. This is sort of piping plover heaven right here.
Matt, there's more birds than 45 here.
Yeah, I've just gone through the group and there's over 80 birds there. That's more than 2% of the Atlantic coast population. That's huge. They were just hunkered down in that grass. We couldn't see them. It shows you how well camouflaged they are.
And you're not going to see these kind of numbers of piping plovers in the United States, maybe in Texas, right?
That's right. These are the biggest numbers you're going to see pretty much anywhere. This is really a special place. It's only 80 birds. Doesn't sound like a lot, but for this particular species, which is endangered, it's a huge number.
What are we looking at globally in terms of the global population now?
The estimate's around 8,000 birds globally, about 4,500 birds on the east coast approximately. So you can do the math pretty easily. We got a lot of birds here.
Absolutely incredible to see these numbers of an endangered bird, the piping plover. Stay with us when we come back and we go looking for great lizard cuckoos.
This Birding Adventures episode is powered by Nikon, your world leader in optics since 1917, and by the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism and the islands of the Bahamas. Birding is better in the Bahamas.
Well, this morning we're in northern Andros, and our target bird for this morning is the great lizard cuckoo. What a stunning area to look for this bird. We're at Uncle Charlie's Blue Hole, which is this massive expanse of blue water that heads down from fresh water right down into salt water below, and it actually flows directly into the ocean. And then we're walking through these amazing pine forests, and we're looking for a bird that lives and skulks in the undergrowth of this pine forest. And this is called the great lizard cuckoo. Let's go birding. One of the hardest birds to find on Andros is the great lizard cuckoo, and we've just found one at one of the blue holes in the north of Andros Island. What a stunningly large cuckoo. It's almost the size of a roadrunner, and yet this is a true cuckoo. Wow.
So one way that you could tell that this was a young bird by looking at the eye ring. In full adults, ASYs, they have a reddish eye ring, a red eye ring, but this one here has more of a yellowish brown eye ring. So this is probably a hatchier bird, or a young bird, and you can find this bird on only 2 islands in the Bahamas, Andros and Eleuthera.
Wow, what a job, man.
All right,
Good
excellent
stuff.
work, excellent work.
Well done. I mean, that's amazing.
Awesome.
We looked for that bird this is our 3rd day, and finally we found him. Now this bird is also found on the island of Cuba, but it's believed through recent morphological and genetical testing that this may be an entirely separate species, yet another Bahamian endemic if it does become the Bahama lizard cuckoo. Along with red-tailed hawks and barn owls, great lizard cuckoos are one of the apex predators of the Bahamian Islands, especially here on Andros and Eleuthera, where they are found. They'll eat just about anything that they can get those massive bills on. So they'll feed obviously on lizards, but small snakes, arthropods, any large insects, basically anything they can overpower and consume, they'll eat. They're also a predator of young birds. So birds coming out of the nest, they'll go in and they'll grab those youngsters out of the nest and they'll eat them. A massive cuckoo. What a special bird. What do you call this in the Bahamas?
Some people call it the rain crow at times, but the great lizard cuckoo, because of the food supply, it loves lizards.
They call it the rain what?
Rain crow.
The rain crow,
But
okay.
sometime after it rains, you see it comes hopping out after the rain.
Amazing, amazing. What a special bird, hey?
Oh,
And
very
they're quite rare. I mean, this has been the hardest bird for us to find in the whole of the Bahamas.
But one of the reasons why this bird is so elusive is because of its habit. It's more of a skulking type bird. So you could be walking through the forest like this and you would not know that it's there until it just pops up to say hi. It doesn't make a bunch of noise the way other birds would, like doves and pigeons. The minute they see you, bam, they're out of here. This bird is hiding and stalking. You could be walking and stalking you right now, possibly, and just waiting to see, waiting for an opportunity to pop up before it shows itself. So this bird is an elusive bird, but it's also one of the most charismatic birds. When it decides to show itself, it will stand there and just say, hey, I'm here, take a picture of me, I look great, and then it will go off on its merry way. So really cool bird.
And tell us a little bit about the conservation of this bird, because there are only so few left. There can't be more than several thousand of these left in the world.
That's true. So what is happening now is that we are still trying to do some research on this bird, as well as with another critically endangered bird called the Bahama oriole. And one of the things that we are doing, one of the things that we continue to help to push, is the establishment of national parks. When you have national parks, these protected areas help to conserve and protect incredibly rare and important species of birds that you can find in the Bahamas. And currently in the Bahamas, we have 32 national parks protecting over 2 million acres of land in the Bahamas, land and sea. So the more national parks we have, the better for our species.
And the better for our great lizard cuckoos.
That's right.
All right.
So in Andros, we are really cuckoo for cuckoos. And I advise you, and I would recommend you come to Andros so you can come just as cuckoo as we are for great lizard cuckoos.
This Birding Adventures episode is powered by Nikon, your world leader in optics since 1917.
And sponsored in part by Manfrotto, complete solutions for photographers and videographers. Visit manfrotto.us.
And by Pelagic Polarized Sunglasses. And by the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism and the Islands of the Bahamas. Birding is better in the Bahamas.
This morning we're in Owen Town in North Andros, and Owen Town is an old logging settlement that was abandoned in the 1970s, and now it's in the middle of this amazing pine forest, and the open areas are where the buildings used to be of this old settlement. And now it's one of the hot spots for the Bahama oriole, one of the most special birds of the Bahamian Islands.
Absolutely amazing area for birds. You see it?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
So we got a nice ASY, adult male, or should I say an adult Bahama oriole. You see the strings?
Yeah, I got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's quite windy, but notice how that one's feeding on something. The top of that tree keeps dipping in. I don't know whether it's an insect or whether this is some nectar or berry or something.
But it's also important to note that with the Bahama oriole, like a few other species of orioles, they are what you call monomorphic, which means that both the male and the female, they look the same. It's not like dimorphic like a lot of the warblers, in which you have the males looking amazing, brilliant colored. The Bahama oriole is one of those species that you wouldn't really be able to tell male from female until you have them in hand.
There we go. Look at that. Beautiful. We've got both birds. And they're making this kind of chipping call between each other. That's like a contact call, right?
Right. Yeah. So they have a variety of different types of vocalizations that they use throughout the year. But a lot of times you would hear them going beep, beep, beep. or they make that eep, eep, and they make some funny little tweets and whistles. And so that's one way in which helps us identify this bird even from a distance.
Can you still see it? I've lost it now.
Okay, so it's moving further into the vegetation.
Let's move on a bit and see if we can get some more footage.
Oh, look, there it goes. It's flying over. There he goes.
So the black-cowled oriole has now been split into 4 different species: the Hispaniolan oriole, the Cuban oriole, the Puerto Rican oriole, and our bird here, the Bahama oriole. And what makes this bird different when you look at it is that it has a lot more yellow on it. So a lot of the other species like the Cuban oriole and the Hispaniolan oriole, they'll have a lot more black, whereas this bird only has black coming down onto sort of the lower neck region, and the rest of it is all this vibrant, bright yellow color. It is a stunning oriole, and it has the unique distinction of being one of the only birds that has been named to science twice, because it was discovered in 1890 as a separate species, and then it later on in sort of the 1930s roundabouts there, it was lumped with a bird called the black-cowled oriole. And then it was a black-cowled oriole for about half a century until fairly recently, when genetic and morphological research was done on the birds, and it's now been determined that it is so different from black-cowled oriole that it's now a separate species again, the Bahama oriole. The Bahama oriole is listed as critically endangered by the IUCN. The most updated figures on this bird show that there are less than 300 left on Earth. But recent research by the Bahamas National Trust has a really positive outlook, because the numbers are believed to now be a lot higher. Even so, this bird is only found on this island in the Bahamian chain. It used to be found on Abaco as well, but it was extirpated from that island in the 1980s and early 1990s, and now it's only found on Andros. What a spectacular bird, and it's absolutely vital that we spend a lot of research and time and effort in preserving this iconic species of the Bahamas. Some of the threats facing this bird include hurricanes that can come through and devastate the area. Feral cats are possibly a huge problem, as is the destruction of these incredible pine forests. But it's also believed that there may be another cause that's human-induced, and that is the introduction of lethal yellowing disease to the coconut palms. And it's quite possible that these birds have come to depend on the coconut palms for nesting material. Either way, we have to look at all the different threats facing this bird and mitigate these threats for the future survival of this iconic Bahamian species.
Owenstown is one of the most amazing spots that you could find, not just the Bahama oriole, but you could find a variety of different species, including the great lizard cuckoo. And what we've been doing with observing the birds in this area is we're trying to get as much information about the distribution of this species, especially in north central Andros, so that we could get a better idea of what's the population really like in the Bahamas. This bird is absolutely amazing, critically endangered as was mentioned, and so we got to do everything that we can to help to conserve one of the most iconic birds in the Bahamas. When you have a variety of different types of habitats, such as Owenstown, you have coppice, you have open like grasslands, you have pine woodlands, you have a perfect mosaic of habitats for this bird. And so the more diversity, the better for bird species.
As well as the human-induced threats to the species, of course there's hurricanes, which are natural disasters that can decimate an island like this. But there's a more sinister threat that comes from another tiny bird called the shiny cowbird. And this bird has made a natural progression through the Caribbean islands up into the southern Bahamas, and now it's reached Andros. And of course, being a brood parasite, this is huge problems for a bird like the Bahama oriole. The endemism of Bahamian birds lies in their genetics, because it's quite possible that more island birds from this fantastic island chain will in turn in future become their own separate species. Well, there's few birds as beautiful as the Bahama oriole. What a spectacular species. That's our golden bird for this episode. Thanks for watching our series on the Bahamas, and I'd like to encourage you all, come to this fantastic island. Not only does it have some incredible once-in-a-lifetime endemic bird species, but it's also just so vibrant in culture, and the food is to die for. I mean, who doesn't like conch salad? Come to the Bahamas and get the endemic Bahamian birds. Thanks so much, you guys.
No problem.
What a great time we spent with you guys. And they've got some excellent guides to take you around. We'll see you next week.
The Scotland was a ship, born in sea was the captain.